Hello and welcome to my February wrap up. Okay, I am officially wrapping up the month of February and I had such a good reading month this month. Sorry, how many times did I just say month? But truly I had such a good reading month. I read 6 books, which is the most I've read in quite a while in one month. All of last year I pretty much consistently read 4 books a month. That was just my average goal because that's my end goal was always 50. And so that was the least amount I could read a month to try to get there. So this is awesome that I read 6. I'm really proud of myself and I'm hoping I can continue reading a little bit more than usual. I think last month I ended up also reading 5, so pretty proud of myself. But yes, hopefully I think part of the reason is, with this channel, I'm pushing myself to read even more and doing fun challenges and stuff like that make me sit down and read even more than usual. So, pretty happy about that. But let's get into what books I read this month. Okay, the first book I'm going to be talking about is Itch, and this is a book I chose for the Buzzword Reading Challenge of the month. This actually knocked out 2 of the challenges, the title and the cover. Yeah, the title and the cover challenge, because the title challenge was something that you could find on a keyboard, which I think Books and Lala did kind of say, like, not avoid punctuation. She said it counted, but like it would be better to do the other version of it, which was like find a book with like space in it for the space bar, delete for the delete button, etc. Like stuff like that. But I feel like this was just too perfect because it was already on my TBR and it had an exclamation point in it, as you can see. And also, and if you zoom in to that little eyeball on the cover, which also Books and Lala loves an eyeball cover, so it felt very right. But you can see a silhouette, which was the cover challenge for the month. So I kind of had a run with this one. And this was good. I think I gave it a 3 star. Although I did like this book, I do feel like it was a little bit disappointing in the sense that I was expecting it to be one thing and then it ended up being another, which wasn't bad, but it kind of almost started as this like folk horror, very spooky, very body horror. This is a body horror book. Oh, let me also tell you what it's about. Sorry. So this is about Josie, our main character, who returns home after a falling out with an abusive relationship she has with her girlfriend in London. She returns to her small town, and one day she's walking through these fields to get back to her house, and she stumbles upon a dead body infested with bugs. Josie then goes on to believe that she herself is infested with bugs, her body. So this is definitely body horror. Keep that in mind. And basically tries to unravel what has happened to this murdered woman and how it connects to her small town. So, yeah, I just feel like this was going in a very folk horror, very like eerie, chilling. I literally got so scared from reading this book that I had to stop reading it past like 6 p.m. I was like, okay, I cannot listen to this anymore while I am trying to sleep and stuff. It just wasn't working. But then the second half of the book just fell into a very predictable plot line, very predictable story. I felt like I was expecting something a little bit more out of the box and it wasn't. And while I was disappointed, it wasn't bad. I think it was still interesting and I think it was still good. I think it was still action packed. It also did, however, seem to drag on just a little bit. I felt like there was a point where I'm like, okay, this is the end of the book. And then there were like 3 more chapters. And I was like, okay. I mean, like I said, I actually checked again. I gave it a 3.5. I did like it. I just think that I was looking for a little bit more and was slightly let down, but I still enjoyed it. The next book I finished, I believe, was The One by John Mars. I really liked this one. I gave it, let me see, I think I gave it like a 4 star. But this one was really good. It is a sci-fi thriller horror about a world where you have a perfect DNA match. Yes, I gave it 4 stars. A perfect DNA match. A perfect DNA match. And it's set up kind of like a dating website, but you send it, well, not exactly, because you send in your DNA and then you get your perfect match. So you're not like matching with anyone else, obviously. But we follow 5 different storylines, 5 different couples who have done their DNA match and how different each story can look. So one storyline is following someone who their perfect match was a man, but they don't identify as gay. Another one was someone who'd already passed away and they got matched up, but you know, they had sent in their DNA prior to passing away. So it was really good. I just feel like this was such an interesting concept that I had never seen before. I think that's sci-fi might be my new like thing this year because I've the two like kind of sci-fi. Actually, I'm realizing my last book I read that was sci-fi that I said was sci-fi, Crawler Carl, is actually a lit RPG. I did not even know that was a genre. So now I'm educated, but it felt like sci-fi to me. I really enjoyed that one. I really enjoyed this one, so I feel like this might be my new genre to explore. But yeah, it was so good. I The twists and turns were crazy. Sometimes I get a little bit annoyed with how many like plot twists there can be in a book, but because there was five different storylines, all the plot twists felt like less because it was happening to different people. So I wasn't like, okay, how is this all like coming out to be this way? It felt like, okay, these are all individual stories, so they can each have their own plot twist. But yes, so good, so suspenseful, and just so interesting to see. I love the world. Like I love this idea that there is a perfect DNA match. Such a cool concept, and the fact that it wasn't a romance really. It was really a thriller and like this suspenseful book where you are like figuring out that not everyone is exactly who you think they are. And it was so fun. Absolutely love this one. Okay, and the next book I finished is A Killer Kind of Romance by Lietzi Lorini, I believe. And this was actually really fun. I started off not loving this and ended up really, really enjoying it. I just think so. Okay, let me say that this is about a girl. She is a podcaster for like a podcasting company or a book company that does podcasts. Kind of not remembering now, but she talks about fiction books that are based off true crime. Or I'm not. She basically like talks about thrillers. Like I don't know why they say true crime because it's technically not. It's fiction. You know what I mean? Anyways, so she's basically reviewing thrillers on her podcast. And then she realizes one day that there is a murder in her town that is directly resembling a murder in a thriller that she had just like uploaded podcast about. I absolutely love that premise. Like I think that's so interesting. I love a copycat killer storyline just because I feel like they get crazy. And then of course there was an added element of underlying romance throughout. And it's kind of interesting because like at some points you're like, is this romantic character, is her love interest the killer? And I won't say if he is or not. But I had so much fun reading this. Again, I do feel like at first I wasn't loving it because some of the characters felt very two-dimensional and a little bit stereotypical. I think I'm just a little bit tired of like this trope and this idea that characters in books have where they're like they've been hurt or like something has happened to them either like familially or like romantically where they're like I am no longer accepting love, which I understand that is a real thing that happens. It's just I feel like it is almost so common in books that I'm like I don't know, I just wish we would be a little bit done with that trope because this main character, she would be like saying like she was choosing to be single and she didn't need love and she didn't need like this romantic relationship and it was her own choice, but then at the same time she was saying for like which for whatever reason that like oh she didn't think she deserved love, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like that like you're on one hand you're trying to make it this like girl power like or like whatever like self power like sense in that you're like I don't need anyone blah blah blah, and then on the other hand you're like it's actually because I don't deserve love. Like I don't know, I'm a little bit tired of that trope and I wish we could explore different things in the romantic genre. I mean again I said this in another video, I do think it's partly my fault for picking similar books, but what can I say? I'm working on it. But anyways, other than that, I did really like it. I love the overarching storyline of this like serial killer and trying to figure out who it is, and also the love story I end up really loving. Was it so incredibly cheesy? Yes, absolutely. It was a cheese fest. It was Wisconsin cheese curds all the way, and it was ridiculous, and I ate it up. So what can I say? I'm a simple woman, but yes, ended up really enjoying that. I think I ended up giving it a 4 stars, and I would read from this author again. So she got me. Okay, next was a random throw-in book that I decided to read kind of last minute. I read Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. I read this because one, I wanted to listen to another thriller. I read a lot or like listen to a lot of books at work because I'm just able to. I'm mostly at my laptop. So I like to read slash listen to whatever thrillers a lot. I am like someone who really can't do romance audiobooks. I don't know if that's just me, but I get really cringed out. But anyways, so I read a lot of thrillers. I just wanted another one. I had just watched His and Hers on Netflix, which is the Alice Feeney book that got turned into a TV show. I was obsessed with that show. I literally started and finished it in one day. It was so good. I was gagged by the end of it. I was so shook. So I really wanted to try something by her because I don't think I've read anything else by her before. I picked this up. It was it's I think her newest release, and it was also just like available on Libby. I think I gave it 3 stars. It was interesting. This felt like that movie that was a remake with Nicholas, the one with the face. I can't remember his name right now, but I think the movie is called The Wicker Man. It was kind of giving that vibe a lot, actually, which I liked that. This story just dragged on, though. I kind of was like there was like 2 hours left, I think, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I care, to be honest. I don't know if I care. I loved the setting. Oh, sorry. Again, let me tell you that this is about a man who he is on the phone with his wife one day. She's coming home to celebrate the fact that he is now a New York Times bestselling author. And while she's on the phone, she stops her car in the middle of the road because she sees a woman lying there in the middle of the road. She gets out to investigate. He tells her not to, and she disappears. And a year later, his editor, I believe, or publisher, sends him to a remote island to try to, I guess, grieve the loss a little bit, but also to get back into writing since he hasn't been able to write since his wife disappeared a year previous. And there he meets some of the islanders and finds out what is going on this very remote island, which that is to be said that I loved the setting. I loved the setting. I loved a remote island. I don't know why, but I do. It's so good. I think I love remote settings in general. I think it makes everything more eerie, more spooky, more dangerous. I love the like foggy, like wharf, whatever vibes of this. Like it was in England, but I was imagining like very Seattle weather, fog, mist, rain. They had big redwood trees, which are not a thing in England, I guess, but they had them on this island for, a reason you'll see if you read it. But I loved the setting. I did really like some of the characters. I didn't like, there was a reveal at one point. Didn't care for it at all. I was like, okay. I don't really love when authors do some kind of twist or reveal or whatever to something that, like, how would we have ever even guessed that? I mean, sometimes it's fine. Like, I think it just depends. And this time I wasn't really a fan. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't have, it was interesting and eerie at first, and then I just lost interest the second half. So yeah, sorry. I would try another Alice Feeney, but wasn't a success for me. Okay, and the next book I finished was Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. And this was my nonfiction read of the month. I am trying to expand my horizons. It's something I picked out of my like random prompts of the month too. So that was really exciting. And I really enjoyed this. This is a book about Ta-Nehisi's life, and it is addressed to his son. So we're getting it in second person perspective, I think. He's addressing what feels like us, but it is his son. I kind of thought it was going to be more like a letter almost. I don't know why I thought that because it's like 150 pages. So how would that work? But it was just like overall addressed to him. And yeah, this was really good. It was very insightful and sometimes a little bit heavy, but such a good read. I think, especially as somebody who is not Black, will never know any of the struggles that a person of color like that could go through. It's just, I think, very important to step into other people's shoes a little bit and see their perspective and how they live. So for that, I really enjoyed it. I think one of the themes that was really interesting to me throughout a lot of the book was this like fear. He talks a lot about the body and his body and how the bodies of Black people are directly harmed by racial injustices, not literally always physically, but also kind of also always physically, which I thought was interesting. He also talked about fear and how a lot of the, kids in his neighborhood would act more masculine, act more aggressive, and act more whatever to come off a certain way out of fear. They knew that if they didn't act these ways, that somebody else would kind of take advantage of them. And I think that was really interesting to point out. I think that is sad, obviously, but just very poignant to hear. Also, there is a story that he talks about where he meets this man in college, Prince Jones, who he kind of describes him as someone that he wasn't very close with but knew in passing but were friendly enough to like say hi to, etc. And he talks about how Prince Jones was kind of this shining star character in like especially at his university, at Howard University, which he describes as his mecca. Everybody loved him, like son of doctors and smart, fun, nice, whatever. And then after college, killed and he was killed by a police officer. And what I thought was so interesting that Ta-Nehisi points out is that it was actually another Black police officer, and the sting of that and what that really means. But also, he discusses how it's not even the police officer. It's not even the police officer at fault. It's the institution itself, and how it's way beyond that individual person in that individual moment. And I was just really sad by that. He also talks about going to talk to Prince Jones's mom and how he realized that when somebody dies, it's not just their death you know, that happens, but it's kind of the death of all these people who invest something into this person, which was a very interesting way to look at it and a very, I think, poetic and beautiful way to just like look at life in general, but also very sad to think about. Like he was talking about how his mom had supported her son and in doing so maybe made sacrifices along the way, and in a way all of those things kind of died with her son. It was sad and it was a hard read at times, but definitely an interesting one. And I think especially right now, with like I mentioned in my TBR video, with everything happening in America, with ICE, with Trump, with everything, and I think another thing he said really stood out is, the Black people will never be able to escape racial injustice on their own or beat the system on their own. It has to take a community, it has to take everybody, especially non-Black people, to achieve that. And I think that goes without saying for all the other communities, all other minorities and people who are affected by injustice and racism every day, is that it doesn't just take that one individual group. It takes everybody to be a community and come together to change and fix things. So, definitely a good read. I think right now it was very well written, obviously, and reading it in the way that he was addressing his son made it very emotional and kind of sweet in a way, but also like very telling on how different and difficult it is to be a person of color in America. So I did not rate this one. I don't really know how I would rate like nonfiction books, but I really enjoyed it and I would recommend it to really anyone. And it was a short read, so. Okay, and my last read of the month was Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. This is a book that's been on my TBR for so long. I think at least 2 or 3 years, and I'm so glad I finally have read it because honestly, I loved this book. I had so much fun, feels like the wrong word, but I did really enjoy myself reading this. And I feel like anyone who has read this book might be like, oh, okay, that's an interesting way to describe it because in a way it is kind of a miserable book. I think what I really liked about it and what I think a lot of other people have issues with it, totally fair, are the characters. I think I know that they are not good people, honestly. There's very few people in this book that are not like guilty of some kind of sin or some kind of something. In that way, I think that's why I really liked it. They felt very real. They felt like nothing was sugar coated at all, and it was very much a kind of tragic story. But I think that is why I liked it. I don't know. I can't totally like understand why I like it. I think a lot of the writing was beautiful. I loved the writing of this. I Some of the quotes in this I think will live with me forever. I just feel like she has such a way of Emily Bronte has such a way of describing like obsession and like passion and the way that her characters talk about each other, like, is specifically Heathcliff and Catherine is just so gut-wrenching and almost like desperate, and I really enjoyed that. I don't again, that sounds crazy, but yeah, I just think that this was such an interesting look at such a toxic structure. What else was really stood out to me was the generational impact that was explored. Like the fact that we not only saw Heathcliff Heathcliff and Catherine growing up and how their childhood, how they were treated as children indirectly impacted all their decisions as they were growing older, as they were adults. But we got to see their children kind of remake all the decisions, bad decisions and potential mistakes and whatever you might have it as they grew older. And I was just like, wow, this is such a crazy, like, mirrored effect. Like everything's felt very symbolically doubled, if that makes sense. Felt like everything had a mirror image in the way that these family dynamics kind of played out through the generations. Yeah, and I loved the gothic elements of this. I loved the isolated moors. I loved the foggy swept land. I loved the desolate house of Wuthering Heights and the absolute tragedy and abuse that was Catherine and Heathcliff's relationship. And I mean, I don't love the abuse. I just I just think the way that it was written was very interesting and very unique for the time. Potentially, I guess I haven't read all the classics. I also, in a way, like, as much as I hate Heathcliff for everything he did as an adult, like when I was reading the first chapters and just getting into the story, like my heart kind of just broke for him and for the way he was treated, especially knowing that he is not white, and that is one of the reasons, the main reason why he was ostracized as he grew older and treated so unfairly. And as much as he was a villain later on, like it was just sad to know that. And then ugh, to see him treat his own son that way, and also Hareton, is just like, oh my God, when does it end? It At the end, it did start to feel a little bit like I needed to escape this house. Oh my God, it's like the Charlie XCX song, I'm gonna die in this house, from the movie. I feel like it's hard for me to completely describe how I'm feeling about it. I actually want to watch a few like video essays about it maybe and just kind of delve deeper into it. I just really loved it, and I can't even totally put my finger on why. I don't feel like I normally really love stories just about people being people. I know that sounds bad, but I honestly prefer a very action-packed, crazy storyline, which is why I like thrillers and horrors, etc. So, yeah, I don't know what exactly was really stood out to me about this one that I don't know. I loved it. I honestly think a lot of it was the writing. And while the characters were sometimes insufferable, they just felt so real that I had to like feel bad for them. Like I had to have this sympathy over them where I almost felt like I knew them, and I was like understood them to the point where I was like, despite all their terrible choices and actions, I was like, I understand some of them to an extent. And I don't know what that says about me, but I did. I really loved this one. And now I am able to go watch the movie, which obviously I've heard some very mixed reviews about. And I am going in not expecting a very true adaptation at all. So I think knowing that, it will be easier to see it not really come to fruition. However, I do think I'm going to watch another adaptation. I know there's one from, I think, the early 2000s that I might check out, or the mid 2000s, but interesting because I don't think Heathcliff is like a person of color in that as well, which I just, that is the main, that is kind of really the main plot at like the main driver of the issues in this book, or how things become what they are. So I don't really understand that situation, but I still really want to watch an adaptation. If anyone has any other recommendations which maybe are a little bit more accurate, I would love to hear them. But with that being said, I do want to read one of the quotes that obviously is very famous, and I think very much sets the tone and gives you an idea of what the book is about. And I think will be a spoiler warning. So, spoiler right here. But this is after Catherine dies, and this is Heathcliff talking about her death. "May she wake in torment," he cried, with frightful vehemence, stamping his foot and groaning in a sudden paroxysm of ungovernable passion. "Why, she's a liar to the end. Where is she? Not there, not in heaven, not perished. Where? Oh, you say you cared for my sufferings, and I pray one prayer I repeat it till my tongue stiffens. Catherine Earnshaw, may you not rest as long as I am living. You said I killed you. Haunt me then. You said I killed you. Haunt me then. The murdered do haunt their murderers, I believe. I know that ghosts have wandered on earth. Be with me always. Take any form. Drive me mad. Only do not leave me in this abyss where I cannot find you. Oh God, it is unutterable. I cannot live without my life, and I cannot live without my soul." So, if that, I think that gives somewhat of an image of the drama and the uh, just the intensity of this book in the writing, and maybe an idea why I loved it so much. But yes, that concludes all 6 of the books I read in February. I'm very proud of myself, and I'm hoping I have just as good of a month next month. So, yes, that concludes my wrap up, and thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.